Hello, welcome back to the Movie Marketing and Distribution podcast powered by Usher You. My name is Alex Stoltz, and as well as hosting this podcast, I'm head of film here at Usher You and run a company called Future of Film. At Usher You, we are passionate about the topic of movie marketing and distribution, and everything we do is driven by our mission to make this more easy, more cost-effective and impactful. To find out more about our solutions for distributors and national film organizations, and of course access all of the other podcasts and free resources, just head over to usheru.com today. I'll spell that. That is USHERU. That's usheru.com, or just drop me an email at alex@usheru.com. So this is a show, as regular listeners know, dedicated to the business and art of marketing and distribution, and where we spotlight innovators, executives, entrepreneurs who are changing the game. And I'm delighted to welcome to the show someone today who is at the forefront of this innovation, Christie Marchese. Christie is the founder and CEO of Kinema, the social cinema platform with the goal of connecting films and filmmakers to audiences everywhere. And we'll certainly be talking a lot about that. Christie also founded impact agency Picture Motion in 2012. Oh, PicMo. It's an award-winning agency made up of impact producers, marketing strategists, and communication specialists in developing grassroots marketing and social action campaigns for films everywhere. Christie, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for taking the time. I'm really looking forward to this chat, this conversation. And yeah, let's just dive in. I'd love if you could tell me a bit about Kinema, and really, I suppose, what was the inspiration for you starting the company?
Sure. So we say at Kinema, we help audiences discover and watch great films in creative places and in community with others. And so we do this by running a marketplace platform that on one side has an operating system for filmmakers to manage screening tours, and on the other side by developing partnerships with mixed-use spaces in real life and community leaders and influencers online to reach audiences everywhere. So our goal is just to bring fantastic, unique, powerful cinema to live audiences, no matter who they are or where they are. And we lean into technology to do that.
Amazing. So you're really sort of providing that platform where all of those different elements can come together. And what was the inspiration? What was the opportunity you saw when you founded the company?
Yeah. So to be honest, I feel like I built the tool that we needed to have when we were at Picture Motion. So I think also thanks for calling us PicMo. We love our nickname. So at PicMo, we develop and implement impact campaigns. I'm not there anymore. An amazing CEO named Brian Walker is now running it. But our job was to design and execute impact campaigns around great pieces of content, primarily film. And a big piece of that and a growing piece of that were screening tours. So how do you bring the film to the audiences that want to and need to see it most? And so we were doing this very, very manually. Over 10 years, it started with like shipping DVDs and tracking the returns on those DVDs. Then it was sending links so people could stream it. We were using spreadsheets. We were sending PayPal links, whatever it was to kind of collect the revenue and distribute to the filmmakers, and try and collect data on audiences by sending paper tear surveys. So this is kind of the most tech forward version of that. We were also looking at how could we open up this network of kind of mixed use screening spaces. And by mixed use, I mean, they have the ability to show a film. They have sight, sound, and seating to show a movie where audience can sit and watch it, but they're not necessarily a movie theater. They could be a museum, it could be a library, it could be a park. We work with a lot of nonprofit organizations and a lot of these mixed use spaces. And there's usually an organizer or a curator at the middle of it that's bringing these films in. So we're like, how do we have better tech for managing all these host relationships? How do we find a better way to deliver the film? And then how can we kind of track and manage who's watching this? And how can we share that with the filmmakers? And how do we open that up so that you don't just have to hire the amazing agency that PicMo is? You can kind of handle yourself with the assistance of tech and access to the network. So that was really kind of the concept for Kinema. And we started getting off the ground, I'd say, like conceptually in 2018, looking to build in 2019. And by Q1 of 2020, we had it. We had the MVP. We knew what we wanted. It was going to be a way to showcase films and deliver them through what we call the offline cinema player. You could download it securely to your equipment. It would be protected, watermarked beforehand, and then show it at a live event or an in-person screening. And that was March of 2020. So we launched with this great idea of like, everyone get out of the home and go watch films in community with each other at the start of a pandemic. Yeah, I know everyone's got their tech pandemic story, and we're not alone in that. And so we kind of took a step back and really kind of reassess, where's the world going? What's going to happen to film right now? Like, how are people going to watch movies? And you know more than anybody kind of what's happened with streamers and how sales have gone or are going right now. But we decided to do was kind of take both paths. We knew that the world would come back online at some point. So we wanted to keep that aspect of our business, supporting these in-person screenings and supporting getting filmmakers and their films into these kind of pop-up spaces across the US and now around the world. And then we built a virtual component. What does that look like online in the interim? And so now we have this platform where you can, as a filmmaker, list your film. You control your marketing, your messaging, your geography rights, if the film can show in person or online. And then for our hosts, we make it really easy to find a film, select it, pay a licensing fee or sell tickets, and then show it to your audience in one of three ways. You can have, if you're an in-person venue, download the film and watch it. If you're more of an online community, you can do a live event where you can talk to the audience before and after, and your audience can live chat. Or if you're really just getting the word out about the film, you can do an event on demand, give your audience a window of time to watch it. So it's my long answer to, we had a bit of a story, a bit of a genesis. The intention was to solve a problem we had as a business at Picture Motion, support filmmakers who are doing self-distribution, and then ride the waves of the pandemic. And here we are today.
Yeah, easy. That's the,
totally easy, no easy breezy.
yeah. Yeah, sometimes, yeah. I'm sure you've wondered if there is an easier way to work in the industry, but that's
it's the circus. We're all in it.
Yeah. So how did it change, like post pandemic? What were the main sort of differences or ways you evolved your thinking after that?
I mean, just in terms of screenings booked, it was probably not too surprisingly. And, you know, we were testing everything in 2020, kind of raising. And so we really launched as Kinema probably like between Q1, Q2 of 2021. There we go. What is time? 2021. And it was all online. They were all live events. We had I'd say maybe like under 10%, maybe under 5% were actually in-person screenings. And those would be outdoor park screenings or government screenings, but primarily live virtual. We also we wanted to test our own product. So we hosted Doc Night every Monday. So movie Mondays, we would have a virtual screening. We'd invite speakers. And we just wanted to understand what it was like to build our own community. So I'd probably say 90% were virtual. That started to shift last summer. In 2022, we started to see just those numbers kind of shift in the other direction to being more 80% were virtual than 70%. Now, and by the end of last year, we were looking at more like probably 60-40. We're coming back in person, which is really exciting. That was kind of the original intent. Like with any type of film distribution online, like being online, you can reach more people, but it's not quite the same experience. We really wanted people to watch in community. We also decided to launch and seeing kind of live dip down event on demand. So it allows someone to have their audience watch within their own time. So now I'd say it's probably 40%. It's probably 40% in person, another like 30% on demand because it's still new. It really launched publicly in January, and then the rest are virtual. And I think we're going to continue to see live virtual dip down a bit. The live virtual events that we're seeing right now that are doing really well are premieres or special events or limited edition. They're a way to kind of show your film for press or show your film for your influencers or your supporters or kick it off in some great way. But yeah, so it's far more in person now. What's fun is you can go to the site. If you just go to kinema.com/events, you can see a sample of the breakdown yourself. Those are all public events where screening hosts have created the event and they want people who are not just their community to come to them. They want to build their audience and build their community through us. So yeah, check it out.
Yeah, everyone should check out kinema.com. And if for venues, how do they get involved? Do you go to them or do they have to register on the site to participate?
Yeah, so a couple of different ways. So we had kind of a base list to work off of from a screening host that worked with before in the past. So we have that base list. We know what they've screened before with Picmo. And so we've kind of been slowly onboarding them by kind of pitching them new films. So when we get a new film, like let's say Nam June Paik, which came in through Greenwich. Greenwich is putting in theaters, and we're putting it in kind of museums and cultural centers and art communities and South Korean communities all across the U.S. We have that first list to go off of, and so we'll pitch and say, here's why we think you should show this film. And then we'll build that list. Like, who are the museums or art galleries that we haven't worked with before that we think would be interested in this great film about this fantastic artist? And then there's new communities. We're like, actually, we don't really know a ton. We don't have a ton of, we would say, maybe South Korean churches or community centers or museums in our network already. This is a really great film that we think their communities would be interested in learning about. So we'll kind of go out and cold pitch. We keep the barrier to entry as low as possible for venues and screening hosts, meaning we don't require them to give us a ton of data on who they are. We just care about, who are you? Are you interested in this film? And will you book it? And from there, we'll know their location data. We'll start to know their interests, and ideally can kind of pitch them more films that we think their audiences would like. We do know when they book, we get an idea of what their space is. So they can actually, when they create their event, when they book the event, they'll put their audience sizes, because if they're buying a license, they'll pay based on the size of their audience. Or if they're selling tickets, we can see how many tickets have sold or on average sell. And then on the event page, they can put additional features like food for sale, ADA or American Disabilities Association. I gotta double check that, but ADA compliance, or if you can BYOB, or if it's outside or mask required. We get that data as they fill it out on the event page. So the dream, to be honest, like the dream and the most kind of maximized version of this is we have registered every venue, at least in the US, not globally, that can function as a movie theater or can be some sort of a cinema that's not a movie theater. We're kind of staying in the non-theatrical space in that way. And that we know what they want to show, and we can better connect them with the films and filmmakers that fit those audiences.
And I mean, not to do movie theaters a disservice at all, but there can be something very special about experiencing a film in a different type of venue, right? And some of those things you mentioned, like more personality, might be some more personality involved, and BYOB. I like that idea.
If there was a way to better, I love movie theaters too. I used to work at a movie theater in high school, so in the early aughts.
Me too.
Yay, nice! I was at Edwards Cinema in Southern California. But if there was a way to, original conception, this is why we love Tug and Gather when they were doing in person. How can you bring those communities into the theaters? And they have the best sound, they have the best picture, and the communities have the audiences. I think there were really, really strong attempts to do that. And there were just some kind of friction points where theaters are stuck and having to sell tickets in a certain way in a certain timeline that made that a bit more difficult. So we think that we complement the theaters. We run alongside them in a different type of experience.
Yeah. So a lot of what you do does resonate, strongly with your background in impact releasing. And, it sounds like, that's a real community outreach. But I'd love if you could, Christie, to talk a little bit about, what is impact releasing? It's a term which is used a lot. What does it mean? I don't know if this is the right way to approach it, but what can we take from it for wider distribution and marketing? What can we learn from impact releasing?
Yeah, so we look at it, I think we would often call it impact distribution in the US. But we did at PICMO, and a little bit of what I learned at Participant Media, which I think is kind of one of the leaders in impact filmmaking and film distribution. It's part of it was strategy. And the first part of that strategy is knowing your audience. So we would say, who's the audience that wants to and needs to see this movie the most? And those are often different audiences. So if you were working on a film about climate change, you do want to get the support of the people who are actively working climate change. They are influencers in a sense in that space. They are your megaphone. So part of that is identifying that. And they're in a sense a marketing channel. They have a platform, they have social, they have email. So part is kind of building those relationships early on, having them and determining when they can come into the film. So pre-screenings of the film, getting their kind of buy-in, and strategizing, how can this film, if this film is successful, how can it support you in your mission? and then looking at who needs to see the film. And those are the audiences who have the power to create change. And sometimes it's a consumer. It could be change your recycling habits. It could be political. How do we change policy to reduce fracking? Or it could be business related. How do we get businesses to change their policies to reduce plastic use or something? And so that requires a different strategy. And so then it's, okay, how do we do free screenings? Do we do press? So I think the bigger takeaways from more the marketing side are really knowing your audience, how to reach them, and understanding the megaphones that reach those audiences. And then on the distribution side, it's so funny. We'd always kind of play this game of how do we work with these organizations? In a sense, the film release is a commercial enterprise. We need people to buy a ticket. We need them to go to a theater. So you're asking these organizations to participate in that in some capacity. So we're also trying to find the right way to ask that. So is it go buy tickets, or we'll do group sales, or we have a sponsor coming in to give those tickets for free, because that the better the film does in the film release, it'll stay another weekend, the more marketing attention, press attention it'll get, and the better it'll do on streaming. So part of that was kind of explaining to those organizations how that helps their mission when the film is successful. Where impact distribution fits in is you can have the film. We will bring the film to you. So if you have a network, I think it's Interfaith Power and Light's amazing, just to stick on the theme of climate change, amazing network of faith communities and churches that believe in, thankfully, and act around reacting to climate change, taking actions in support of addressing climate change, I should say. And so that's a network. That's a great network to show the film to. So how do we get that film to them? So they could do pop-up screenings, or they'll do virtual screenings. That to us is impact distribution. Is for giving them the film, or finding a way for them to support the film that makes sense financially for the film, but also makes sense for those organizations to bring the film to those audiences. And ideally, I think that we get in the impact world that we don't necessarily get in the more traditional film distribution world is the feedback loop and that audience connection. So a big part of when that work is often funded by executive producers or foundations, they want to know, did it make an impact? What happened after people saw the film? So there's an effort to data collect afterwards. So I think one of the things we could try and learn is, how do we do that more? So for us, we have automatic emails that go out after every screening that asks for basic feedback. Not only just, well, how was the experience on the platform, but what did you think about the film? And we've been experimenting with trying kind of connecting that audience data directly to the filmmaker or the distributor we're working with. I'll close this out with one thought. Part of how we're doing that is email access. Like for the hosts that we work with, they're building community. They want to be able to keep continuing to communicate with that audience. So we allow audiences to share their email addresses with them. And we also allow that to carry through to the filmmaker. So if you're running a tour with us and you have 50 screenings, and those 50 screenings each have 100 people that come, as long as they haven't removed the permission to share the email, you've now just built your email list for your next project or for your next kind of whatever you want to share about yourself as a filmmaker, as a creator in the industry. So I'd say those are probably the highlights of what we could learn from impact distribution.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great summary. And I suppose, a lot of it is about driving people, to take action. I suppose we're all trying to drive people to take action, to go and make a purchase. But getting people out of the house is, more of a challenge, as we all know these days, although, there are encouraging signs. People are returning to the theatres. I guess there's lots to it. Thinking there about mobilizing people and that call to action.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get anyone. It's difficult to get other problem. My groceries get delivered to me. My packages come to me. Like my movies come to me. It's in every industry getting people out. I think, did you see Bed Bath & Beyond is just closing now? At least in the US, that's a big deal. Like that's because you can get everything delivered at this point. So yeah, we have the challenge too to get people out of the home, but so do a lot of industries. Of what's that incentivization? What's that special experience? I think we're seeing some of this on the movie theater side. Isn't what's happening right now? Isn't CinemaCon happening right now? Where they're talking about, how do you eventize? How do you make it special? Is it changing the screens, the sound, the food? It's more than just the film. Because you can watch, if you're willing to wait, you can watch something at home. So how do you make that experience extra special? For us, it's community. It's the social aspect of it. Our venues don't have necessarily the largest LED screens or the biggest state-of-the-art sound, but they have the people and the community and a good experience.
Yeah, experiences come in lots of different shapes and sizes, don't they? And that can be luxury seating, but it can be just a very personal and warm experience. And I suppose a lot of the time you're working with releases where the filmmakers are involved presenting and talking about their work.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the films that perform best with us have a very involved filmmaker. I'm sure that's not unique to us, but where the filmmaker is very, very active. They see this as it's an important revenue stream and an awareness building stream for them. So yes, the idea and what we try to build towards is giving them a tool set to run that on their own. So they have a reporting dashboard. They can see where their screenings are. They can see what licenses are booked, what that revenue is, what the audience sizes are. They get email notifications as things come in. We're constantly looking to improve on how to better data share and connect, while also not trying to, we're trying to manage the hosts where they're just coming in to have an event. They don't necessarily need to get 50,000 notifications from a filmmaker who's eager. But we built into the virtual live portion, which is, again, someone hosting a screening online that's live at a scheduled time. It has live chat and live broadcast. So yeah, the host can basically hit broadcast and can welcome the audience. And at the end of the screening, hit broadcast again and invite the filmmaker or any sort of special speaker. So for the filmmakers that are really involved, they'll help coordinate that. They have said they'll attend as many screenings as possible. They'll do an introduction, or they'll do a pre-recording. So yes, we built that into the tool set. We do see filmmakers using it.
You're listening to the Movie Marketing and Distribution podcast, powered by UsherU. How is your marketing strategy right now? Are there areas you want to improve? Or perhaps you are looking for some fresh inspiration and ideas on how to remain ahead of the curve? Well, the UsherU Marketing Scorecard is a completely free resource to identify your marketing strengths and opportunities in less than 5 minutes. Head over to scorecard.usheru.com and you'll receive a personalized report on your marketing, what's working well, areas of improvement, and quick wins. So that's scorecard.usheru.com. Score your marketing today with UsherU at scorecard.usheru.com. And now back to the show. In terms of getting that word out, and I know Kinema is a social platform, but do you plug into other social media? And yeah, what tools, what platforms are you finding most useful for getting that message out?
Yeah, I'd say for us, it's still pretty hands-on. Like it's that personal connect, building the relationships with these screening hosts, providing a good experience. We said this the last company, say it now, like the best marketing we can do is a good job. We want to make sure we're providing an actual service and being useful both for our screening hosts and the filmmakers. So I'd say our email list and our kind of relationships are still the strongest point for us at this stage. We're not in a position to be running big ad campaigns or spending a lot of money online. So our social is still pretty minimal. For a screening host, Facebook continues to be their driver. That's how they get people. That's how they promote their events. We had one filmmaker who's got like 100 screenings happening like right now this week, and on April 30th, they actually started a Facebook group like for their screening hosts to make sure that they're building community within their community. To help share ideas and press materials and more images and like interviews with the filmmakers in advance. So we continue, and when we look at the data on the platform of where people are coming from, Facebook or Meta, whatever it's called, still seems to be a big driver for driving people to individual events.
Yeah, it's interesting that the email is a big part of a very strong driver for you. And having that, it still is just that very, well, you have first party data, right, effectively, and you're able to communicate directly with people. That your audience there, are you able to, but are you sort of segmenting it into different pools of audience interest? Because I imagine there's some overlap, isn't there, between certain films and interest groups. That must be a really interesting opportunity to build that up.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So I'd say our tech stack for that is we use customer.io for email list management and kind of tracking data on users and hosts. And then we use Intercom as like our customer service tool to communicate with everybody. So we have a chat bot that's on everywhere that you go through the site. If you had a quick question, you can chat and you'll get automatic messages, or you'll talk to someone on our team. So yes, I'd say between customer intercom, we get information on what's any hiccups people have or troubles they have or customer service concerns. And we build that into the product roadmap to address. And then customer IO, we build kind of profiles on individuals, what they're watching, what they've hosted, what they've paid for. And we definitely segment those lists. So 1 to 2 times a month, we'll look at the new films that have come on the platform and say, okay, can this fit into the human rights email list? Can this fit into the comedy? Can this fit into documentary? Some films will fit multiple categories, and some films will fit just one. So yeah, we primarily promote the booking of films through that very, very segmented, very tailored email list.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, really powerful.
What do you think? I mean, what are you seeing? You guys, you've had so many people come on. You see a lot of international. I guess my question for you, kind of maybe it's to prompt a question. You have a lot of international guests on the show. I'm a big fan. And so are you seeing kind of any trends on the international side? I've been mostly focused on the US, and it feels like all the industry podcasts are just covering layoffs at tech companies, streamers that aren't buying right now. And theaters are coming back. That's because it can only be binary, one or the other. So I'm kind of curious, like with what you're seeing in talking to so many people internationally and the work you guys do at Usharu. I'm curious, like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, sure. I think it's we're seeing that a bit of polarization in the market for sure. Encouraging signs of theatrical returning, but in a much limited, or even more limited number of titles. We're seeing distributors having to, I guess, get really specific about their audience and how to reach them. We're all still sort of adjusting to the post-streaming world, really, I think. And in Europe, there's a lot of public funding around, which is different, which makes things a bit different, particularly in the independent space. And so there's, I guess, more support structures around to try to help the smaller films and the independent cinemas. But yeah, just even despite that, you're still seeing real challenges.
I wish we had the support that Europe has when it comes to funding. But funding for both the creation of film, the production, the creative side, as well as the business side. I think it might have been, I just listened to Pickle one recently. So Pickle was talking, they had funding that was like government funding that was helping them kind of conceptualize or launch this company. I was like, oh man, wish we could get some government funding in that way. So we went to private money. We went to VC and investor money. And we have a great group of investors. Many come from the entertainment world who want to see this succeed. And we had the trend I started, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this was learning at Art House Convergence what was happening to art house theaters. I grew up with an art house theater near me and looking at how they were declining and actually how they were structured. I'd never thought about it, but to see that more than half of them are nonprofits, that they have to function that way. And then even as a nonprofit that's having to fundraise, we're seeing these great 1 or 2 screen theaters closing, but there's still that drive for it. So one of the things I hope I see in the future, and I hope we can help assist that, are opportunities to use existing spaces that can be those art house theaters that can have whether it's a university or it's a hotel or something where I still want that vibe of the movie theater, that experience, and maybe I'm a little old school and vintage in that. But if that can't happen, there are so many cool spaces that would love to have people come in their doors. And how do we pair a curator? Or pair someone who does a film festival in that town with that space to run a regular series. So I don't know quite how we fit into that, but that's something that I hope to see kind of as we come in this next wave of exhibition.
Yeah. Well, no, it's rethinking. It makes me think about the episode we did recently with Algirdas Ramaska, who runs a great festival in Lithuania, and I don't know if you heard that one, but he's an innovator, and he was putting during the pandemic. He put the festival into a hotel, and everyone in their rooms could watch it on the hotel TV, which I thought was amazing. They took over an airport to show it. Really, I think the festivals actually are like at that sort of the forefront of this challenge, and the opportunity, I suppose, is to rethink the experience, and because it's all about the experience with a festival, and you've got to be really bold and imaginative, think about different venues, think about different audiences approaches, and really get specific about that, and keep innovating. There's no let up, right?
Yes, it's so funny. I heard the part about the hotels, and I just realized I never finished that episode. So I got to go back to hear the airport hangar part. But yes, I love that. There's someone. Oh gosh, where are they? There's someone in the Middle East that's doing it out of containers, store like a big. I can't remember what they're called. Big transport containers. There's turning those into small theaters. I'm forgetting the name of it, but she spoke at Art House a few years ago. Yes, I like that. Gets me excited. That's a cool experience. So it's not just like the watching the film; it's a whole 360 experience, and going there and meeting people and where you're watching it and how you're watching it.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely exciting, but I think it just opens up a lot of challenges, doesn't it, for the business as usual of a medium-sized distributor who is releasing films. Overhead, it's hard, right? And I think it's and it's those distributors who have, I think, really zeroed in on a particular brand or a particular genre, which have a bit more of an edge, I'd say, in the space at the moment.
I listened to the one that you guys did with it was just recent. It was about branding as a distributor.
Oh yes, Oscilloscope. Yeah.
Yes, Oscilloscope Laboratories. Yes, exactly. I think Neon has a brand. A24 has a brand, and they've really branched out, and they've had a ton of financial backing. So yes, they're like having a trusted brand that people know to go through you. And it's also, I think they launch filmmakers. We look at what is kind of the lifetime of a filmmaker, like where are they going? We see there's the short film, you get an indie distribution, ideally you get a bigger indie distribution. In order to have a sustainable career, unfortunately, you have to kind of work your way up and hopefully get some of those bigger budgets. Again, because we don't have the same type of film financing here. But one of the things we hope to do is provide some level of, hopefully a great level of revenue based off your non-theatrical license, doing screening tours and getting your name out there as a filmmaker. Build your community, build those relationships, build your brand as a storyteller. I think that's one thing I'm interested in but don't know as well, but the creator community. So we're looking at these creators who are all about brand for themselves. Like they themselves are a brand as an influencer or creator. And there are some who are doing it to be more in like the acting space and the acting storytelling space in that way. And there are many who are going to go toward the video creator filmmaker space. So I don't know. I'm interested in tracking how that converts, how these kind of video creators and storytellers, not just the makeup artists, which are amazing, but the ones that are really trying to craft a story, kind of evolved or kind of come into the more, I guess, institutionalized standard entertainment world in some way. Will we see a shift from creators, doing social media to becoming more filmmakers? And how can they do that sustainably? So I'm watching it because I'm interested.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think, there's a lot to be learned probably from how successful, some of the successful people in that space engage with their audience, understand their audience, are generous with their audience. And I think that's the really interesting thing. But taking it to more traditional spaces, that's interesting. I think it comes down to what, how filmmaking will evolve, storytelling, and how, there's different ways to get your story out there right now. And one of the questions might be to ask, some of these people is, would you be interested in doing that? Because some of them might say, actually, I don't need to. I've got everything I need here, right?
So it's so funny. I was talking to someone I'll see if I can share her name later. But I was talking to video creator, storyteller, whatever you want to call her, influencer who runs, she had an amazing concept of a TV show. And she's had all the opportunities. She started as an influencer on social media, built up credibility telling the stories, but it's expensive and she wanted a bigger budget. And now she's produced it in two different ways. And one was with Netflix. And so Netflix gives you a certain budget. They give you, I think, whatever your budget is and plus 10% to cover, for your payment on it, something like that. But you lose all the data. You get no data. You don't understand your audience and it's no longer yours. And so that's, while you get all these great things, you get just enough budget for it. It's gone. You don't own that brand anymore. And then she did a different kind of iteration of it with YouTube. And it's got different drawbacks. You own your audience in a sense because you can communicate directly with them. You build a following on it. And she was making about the same money that she made on Netflix through advertising. You still need to have at least 1 million subscribers in order to see any sort of difference. But she had control. So she had control over everything. She had control over the budget. She had control over her messaging, and she got to know her audience. And to be honest, she's actually not quite sure which one is better. There's just all these opportunities. It's like, you give up audience, give up data, give up ownership, but you get taken care of in a way. Or you have more direct connection with your audience, but you're, a one-man show, one-woman show, and having to, build and produce and do everything yourself. So I think there's pros and cons. And so I'm curious, I'm seeing it happen a little bit to go from social media to Netflix, but back to YouTube and maybe back to Netflix again. So it's interesting to watch and understand how these all provide different economic and marketing and audience data opportunities.
It's fascinating. It really is. So you talked about the megaphones you use for Kinema, and I suppose that's influencers. So do you work with like what people might typically call it, think of as an influencer, or is it non-traditional influencers?
We don't work with traditional influencers, or we don't work with influencers in the traditional sense. I think we see our screening hosts as a form of influencer in a sense, because they are a community leader in some way, whether they are an organization leader or they're a programmer in a space, or they're very passionate about this topic. So they're functionally the same. They have a following, they communicate, and people listen and show up. So that's probably the closest we come to the influencer side. We see some of the filmmakers we work with who understand that even further. So it's not just screening hosts, but real online influencers. We have a couple campaigns coming up. I still call them campaigns from that impact world, but essentially they're screening tours, and they are doing kind of preview screenings with online influencers. So these are topic-based influencers one is, I think it's like the vegan and vegetarian space. And the other one is, what are the people who do trading through Robinhood? I'll have to re-edit this part because I can't remember what they're called. Retail investors. So one is okay, going to bring in a few kind of vegan and vegetarian influencers online. The other is working for their film on these retail investors and people who do Robinhood and GameStop and all that stuff. And the idea is they get to have the film before it's released anywhere else. They can do virtual screenings or event on demand just for their audiences, and they'll split the box office with them. So whatever they sell the tickets for, it's 50-50 to the influencer, to the creator, in this limited window. So they're incentivized because they're actually financially making money off of it. And the filmmaker is excited because it's going to one of those megaphones. It's exactly to that audience who will hopefully do good word of mouth for the film as it goes into the next phase of its release after festival, and hopefully get sold and before it's either in theaters or on a streaming platform. So that's how we see our hosts as influencers. And for the filmmakers, they actually do build relationships with individual influencers related to their film.
What brought you into the industry, Christie? What was it when did you fall in love with cinema?
That's a good question. I think like most people, have always loved entertainment and movies. I actually fell in love with film editing. So I had a great program at my high school. So it was way back. We were outside of Los Angeles, and so we just had access to great equipment. And so we were trained on Avid and Final Cut Pro and Adobe Premiere. And I just really enjoyed editing and telling a story through the editing room. So I think I'd originally hoped to go into film editing, and then took a big change in college and ended up on a different path, and then have slowly come back to film in a different way. But I think I fell in love in the edit room.
Yeah, amazing. It's an underrated aspect of the storytelling. for sure.
Yes, it's crucial.
Of course it's crucial, but it's kind of like, it's so important. What are you excited about, looking forward in terms of the industry?
I think one of the things that excites me the most is how international it's gotten. I think there truly, we've been talking about it for a while in the industry, the diversification in stories. And I do credit a lot of the streaming platforms for doing so. We're bringing in international content directly to American audiences, and technology for having better dubbing and better subtitles. Social media for getting us used to watching subtitles because we couldn't turn the volume on when we're watching Instagram on the subway. I think it's kind of normalized subtitles slowly. Probably without our knowledge. So I think that's one of the things that excites me, I think, the most about it.
Yeah.
The content.
Nice. Yeah. And are you, the films on Kinema, are they reflecting that? Are you seeing more international films coming through the platform?
Yes. I think we still are partially it's my network and who I know in the space. We're still predominantly US films. And because we're built, the website, the platform's in English, our primary currency is USD. We still tend to lean more US, but we do get more international films wanting to break into the US market. So yeah, we're seeing a slow shift. And we also have the ability for US filmmakers to set their own geo-blocking. So they do want to break out into the US. Every once in a while, we'll get an influx from another country, and we can't quite figure out why. We want to know where we broke through. We have an amazing screening host in Macedonia right now that hosts a screening every week to every other week. We got our first Dubai venue. So every once in a while get a big influx of people from the Philippines tuning into something. So we look at the data and we aren't quite sure what has triggered it, but we are seeing it grow internationally.
That's really interesting. That's really cool. Well, look, I've really enjoyed this. It's been so much fun. Thank you for taking the time and yeah, really enjoyed this chat. How do we find out more about you and Kinema?
Sure. We just go to kinema.com. It sounds like cinema, but spelled with a K.
Well, Christie, thanks so much for joining the show.
I appreciate it. This is fun.
You've been listening to the Movie Marketing and Distribution Podcast, powered by UsherU. If you want to know more about how UsherU can transform your marketing and distribution, just head over to usheru.com, or why not drop me an email at alex@usheru.com. But in the meantime, thank you again for listening, and look forward to welcoming you back on the podcast very soon.